So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Pawel here from the Better World International, and today's guest is Captain Jim Holm, the founder and executive director of the Clean Oceans International. Jim knows the ocean like the back of his hand. From 1979, he is a licensed U.S. Coast Guard. He was sailing through Atlantic Ocean to New Zealand and participating in marine education programs. Jim, would you like to add something to this description?
I think you've got a fairly decent coverage of it, Paul. I've been very fortunate to go a lot of places. And of course, in those journeys, over 35 years, I've witnessed a slow, steady decline in ocean health, and that's what motivates me to take the action that we're, involved with.
Awesome. Okay, Jim. Yeah, I basically just to let you know, I watch your TEDx, I watch your website, and I kind of love that because the entire our mission of the Better World International, and gathering the dreamers and empowering them to take an action on the global challenges. So it's awesome to see someone who is actually doing that and have some solutions on those things. So Jim,
thank you, Paul. We're trying our best, and I've been very happy with the results of the effort in the last couple of years, and I feel like we're making good progress.
Cool. Jim, could you tell us a bit more what you are working on the Clean Oceans International?
Yes, Paul. Our programs, they're basically two different programs. We work with the local college to teach the college-age students a little bit more about the marine debris issue and how to document and assess that problem on our nearby beaches. From that program, some of the students have become volunteers for Clean Oceans International, and some of them have gone on to take some of our expeditions. First one to Alaska in 2014, the one in January of this year to 3 islands in Hawaii, working with other organizations over there on how they do debris cleanups and education. And then recently, just a few days ago, actually, we returned from doing a beach cleanup with the local community in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And these have been, each one is completely different than the other. Been really an incredible education for our folks, and also it's great to work with the communities that we have visited.
Oh, okay.
And then the second half of our work centers around the ability to convert plastic waste into gasoline, diesel, and kerosene on our what we call our plastic to fuel conversion system. And we have a small-scale, commercial-sized plastic to fuel converter in a mobile unit at the local college. And we're investigating how much energy it takes for that conversion process. And also, eventually, we're going to be working on the potential for toxicity from converting a variety of different types of plastic.
Okay, so Jim,
basically what we do.
Okay, that sounds really, really cool. So I think I would like to start from. I think not many people are aware why actually this is marine debris are dangerous. What's going on with the oceans? I think the people don't have actually this awareness about how destructive it is. So could you tell us more how it affects us as humans and how it affects ecosystem?
Yeah, and that's actually takes a lot of time and space to really go into the correct detail. But ocean plastics causes damage to the ecosystem and the residents of those ecosystems. It's kind of an insidious thing. The most notable one, of course, is when you find an animal that has eaten too much plastic and stops eating any other kinds of food, and they starve to death. And those are, of course, those famous pictures out of Midway Atoll of the albatross chicks and such. Large marine mammals, seals, sea lions, sharks, whales, dolphins. Of course, sharks not being mammals, but large sea creatures are commonly entangled in plastic debris, be it garbage from cities or fishing gear. and it's very common for them to drown or starve to death because they're unable to eat anymore.
Okay, so Jim, so where's this all plastic coming from on the first place? How's that happen? There is so many of that we're killing the animals.
Well, actually, most of the plastic comes from you and me, even though we don't recognize that. Just general life for most people on the planet involves plastic packaging for most, if not all, of their food products and such. And there is not a proper infrastructure on a global scale that allows people to handle their plastic waste issue. And so it gets loose in the environment. There's no motivation for anyone to work hard at keeping that out of the environment.
But how's that happen that my plastic is actually ending up in the ocean?
Well, the old adage is that the ocean is downstream from everybody. So let's just say you've got a sandwich or something and it's wrapped up in plastic, and that plastic gets loose from you when you're sitting at the park bench and the wind picks it up, blows it over to the other side of the park faster than you can get there, and all of a sudden it's gone. Well, then it lands in the street, and at some point there might be some sort of rain or cleaning of the street, and that'll get washed down into the storm drains, and eventually it finds its way into the creeks and streams and rivers, and of course migrates its way down to the bays and on into the ocean.
Oh, wow.
And that's actually accredited with probably 80% of the plastic pollution problem.
Really?
That's how they figure it get there.
Really? So all the garbage that we living somewhere outside, or there's this pollution going on, this is this plastic that going on to the oceans? I was thinking honestly maybe some big corporations or something, they throw out the plastic to the oceans and they don't care.
Well, that does still happen a little bit.
Okay.
And certainly some countries have better infrastructure than others. But quite commonly it's just a little scraps of plastic, 1 or 2 or 10 at a time, that get loose from civilization.
80%.
And that all adds up.
80% of the plastic in the oceans are going from us.
That is the statistic that is used most often.
Wow. I was not aware of that at all. Okay, so what we know, it's harming the environment, it's killing the animals, it's the animals eating that, they probably get stuck sometimes into those plastic. I saw some of those pictures. What else happening because of this plastic?
Well, most people aren't concerned about the animals in the ocean. I know that sounds kind of crass, but that's really true. However, they are concerned with their own health, or perhaps their children's health. And one of the characteristics about plastics floating in the ocean is that if it comes in contact with other petroleum products that are, let's say, toxic, like motor fuel or brake fluid or something, some lubricant from your car perhaps, or even petroleum-based fertilizers or insecticides, if those get loose into the environment, oil floats on water, and if that oil that's floating on the water comes in contact with plastic, that oily substance will stick to the plastic and transfer, of course, that toxicity to that plastic. And it's been well documented that a variety of fish are eating varieties of plastic, and that would include, of course, the toxic stuff that was floating free in the environment not too awfully long before that. And so if the fish are eating toxic stuff and we're eating the fish, well, I'll leave it up to everybody else to figure out what that might mean.
Okay. I want to say this out loud. So basically there is a poison already, and the fish eating the poison, and we eating the fish, so we poison our body and our probably children's as well, and so that why we should be concerned.
That certainly is a very high risk.
Okay, Jim. So my question is why we have to stop? Why we have to stop the polluting? This is the first one, and why it's so important to clean the ocean as soon as we can.
Okay, well, 3/4 of our planet is covered by oceans.
Yep.
And so the health of that ocean system is obviously very important to the health of the planet in general. And so we need to concern ourselves with all sorts of different health challenges that the oceans are facing. Plastics is one of the largest, of course. So we need to pay attention to that, just because ocean health equates planet health, and of course that is the only planet we have at the moment. So that's an important consideration. And then in terms,
so wait a second, Jim.
Why we need. Okay.
So it does mean that if we will not stop, it could almost like destroy the Earth, or have some very serious effects on the Earth.
That's absolutely right, Paul. As I say, ocean health is absolutely essential for overall planetary health. And the ocean is facing many challenges: overfishing, ocean acidification from our greenhouse gases mixing with seawater, and that causes a loss in the micro plankton level, which of course is the basis of the food chain for pretty much all life on Earth. And if that gets messed up, which it has already shown signs of being, the food chain as we know it may be broken, and a lot of people on this planet rely on the oceans for their protein.
Okay, so how do you think, how many years we have if we're not going to stop, and if it's not going to get better? How many years still this Earth will be able to handle that?
Well, Paul, that's actually not something that I'd be comfortable guessing.
Sure.
Because that is a guesswork. You can make up statistics to prove any point you want. It's difficult to say that it's 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it might be. However, I know that the trend over my 35 years at sea, the trend has been in the wrong direction. And we need to stop and then reverse that trend. And sooner is better than later.
Okay, Jim, I know you're traveling and you probably don't have it with you, but do you remember any statistic on how the great problem marine waste is?
Again, there are a number of studies. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. There are a number of studies which put out educated guesstimates of how much debris is in the ocean. However, I know that that's all that you can really do is take some samples and take a number of samples and then interpolate that to figure that covers the entire ocean basins. And again, that is educated, but it is guesswork. So the one thing I do know, putting statistics aside, is that it is getting worse, and it's getting more obvious every year. And that's one of the reasons that people are starting to wake up and pay attention, is they can actually see it now.
Okay. Jim, so I'm really interested in how the big group of people and how everyday people could actually, what we could do right now to stop it.
Well, almost everything boils down to a couple of different answers to questions, and that is politics and money. Of course, we would love to have financial support to continue the research and the work that we're doing. If you think that our organization is worth it, that helps. If you have other ideas for different organizations that are achieving your goals, it's worthwhile supporting them. Also, politics. Everyone needs to decide what kind of a planet or environment we want to leave for our children, and let that be a guiding light to when they make their political choices. And I'm certainly not here to try and tell anybody how they should vote, but I would like to know that people are considering the future when they do so.
Sure. One part of what your organization is doing, you are educating people, but the second one, it sounds like a really cool, high technology, advanced stuff. So basically what I understand, you're collecting those trash, this plastic, but it needs to be some certain type of plastic, and you basically create from this plastic fuel.
That's right, Paul. And again, it sounds high-tech, but it's actually very, very simple process. Essentially, you've got a kind of a fancy, relatively expensive oven, and you move different types of plastic waste through this oven, and in the process you raise it to around 800 degrees Fahrenheit. And once it reaches that particular level, the plastic is vaporized, and we do this in an oxygen-deprived environment so it doesn't catch fire. When the plastic is vaporized, you then capture those hot gases, run them through a system that cools them back down, and they reconstitute as a liquid. If you then further refine that liquid, you can break it into individual components that are gasoline, diesel, and kerosene. The beauty of this is that it imparts a financial value for the waste, and that financial value then motivates people to steward it or collect the plastic much more than they are doing now. The particular style of this plastic to fuel conversion system that we are working on is what we call small-scale plastic to fuel conversion, and that enables the end user, the customer, if you will, to put a system that's custom made to their particular waste stream in almost any location, even down to remote areas and island nations and such. So that gives the opportunity then for them to manage their plastic waste and profit from it. And it's lower carbon footprint than the present style of exploring for plastic and then excavating and drilling and that sort of thing. So it's a win-win from most every angle.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I didn't know about this. And for example, what for purposes you could use that fuel that is generated?
Yes, just any particular application that you have for a motor fuel, like I say, gasoline, diesel, and kerosene.
Wow.
We're looking at, let's just say, Pacific Island nations that have a problem because their limited fuel supply or their expensive fuel supply limits them to where they are able to fish. So they end up fishing in the same place most of the time. And that, of course, is impacting those places that they are now overfishing. So if they're able to take their waste plastic problem, which is actually coming from other sources, not themselves, and then convert that into a lower carbon footprint and a less expensive motor fuel to put into their either outboard motors or diesel engines for their boats, they're then able to fish in different locations and relieving the pressure on their local fishery while they're actually cleaning up the plastic debris problem that they have and saving money and lowering carbon footprint.
Okay, that's very, very interesting. And for example, in what role in your organization plays in this? Are you actually invented this little tool to transferring the plastic to the fuel, or are you just educating people about this, how that works, or everybody, I don't know, can buy this little invention?
Well, we did not invent it. It's actually an older technology that's just been retooled recently to do this work. We've discovered that there are very large systems that will handle many tons of plastic a day, and also all the way down to very tiny systems that just take a kilo of plastic at a time. Our work is centering on ensuring that the products that it produces are not toxic, and if we do find a toxic component, then creating mitigating technology or opportunities to reduce that problem, and then also documenting the energy use involved in the conversion process, so that this becomes available for end user clients at every location. We are not working for any one particular manufacturer. We have some that we're working more closely with, of course, but the idea is that there are a variety of these technologies, and different ones may be more or less suitable for a particular client's needs. And we'd like to be able to provide that client with the most efficient and environmentally sensitive option for reducing their plastic into fuel.
Okay, I understand that. So, John, do you think, for example, in the future, as a human race, we would need to give up plastic completely for our own sake?
That would be a good move for us because, again, it does have toxic components. It's an amazing material. I think we will probably continue to use plastics. I would hope that we would slowly and steadily work ourselves away from petroleum-based plastics and petroleum-based chemicals, and we are slowly evolving to have that option. However, it's going to take some time, and if I could accurately predict the future, I'm sure I'd be a very, very wealthy man. But we're hoping that as humankind learns a little bit more about our situation, that we collectively take action to protect the only environment that we've got.
Exactly. This is the same mission, Jim, that we have here, and also we kind of give ourselves the goals that we want to participate in the cleaning up the Atlantic Ocean, let's say, in next few years. So let's say you have the access to 100,000 people community. What we could do to be part of it and to really make a difference.
The most important thing is to stop where you are and look around in your own community. And if every one of us takes action to make our own community more responsible and for our own plastic waste, and take advantage of technology options such as the plastic to fuel conversion to recycle all of their plastics whenever possible, and has the political will to put leaders in position to continue that operation, that's the most important thing that each of us can do individually. Of course, if someone has more time and energy or money, they can either work with or support organizations that are working harder to do that sort of thing. But collectively, each of us has to take our own personal responsibility.
Sure. Jim, for example, let's imagine that everything is possible. What would be the steps we would need to take to stop the polluting, and the second one probably to clean up the oceans? Or, for example, let's say, I don't know, the new government is saying that first we stop produce this and this plastic. Second of all, there is, I don't know, boats and marines who collect the plastic from the ocean or somehow. So third of all, there is some system of collecting the plastic from marines. How's that actually? Let's say you have unlimited budget and you can do it. What would be the steps to make that happen, to really create a huge difference, like from the beginning to the end?
Well, okay, from the beginning to the end, of course, the single most important thing is education. Most people on the planet still don't understand the size and the impacts of this plastic pollution problem. Okay. So without that knowledge, they're not even going to think about taking any action. So first and foremost, we need to inform essentially everybody on the planet that this is an issue and a problem.
Which going to lead, if you're not going to take care of that, which going to lead for food poisoning and the end of the day for even messing with the entire ecosystem, because the food chain could be broken.
That's true, and again, we're on track to have that problem if we don't change things, in the fairly foreseeable future.
Jim,
so first and foremost is education.
I'm sorry. I'm hopping from the subject to subject, but I want to understand, if the food chain will be broken, what will actually happen?
Well, again, that's all up to conjecture, Paul. But the microscopic animals, the plankton as we call them, are the basis of all life in the oceans. Again, you could look it up in Google or something to find out what percentage of the planet's population relies on the ocean for their protein, options for food. But it's very significant. If in fact the food chain is broken, there will be many nations that suffer and starvation and food shortages will become a commonplace event for some of these places.
And probably they would need to have the proteins from the animals or from the other sources. So
right. Yeah,
more
if they don't get it from the ocean, they'll get it from someplace else.
And so they probably could kill more animals and destroy some plants or something.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, it's all conjecture.
Yes.
And I tried very hard not to operate in conjecture.
Sure.
But you've got the basic idea. Yeah, there is a chain, and if it's broken, we're going to have other issues.
Okay, so when we're talking about the chain, so I understand the plankton is gone and the microorganisms. So the fish, they don't have something to eat, and if they don't have something to eat, they basically they cannot they die. And what I also understand, there's less of the fish and other organisms which the people cannot eat, and it's caused the like a domino effect of those, right?
That's really true, and that's happening all over the world already. And it's not to the point where entire nations are starving to death, but there's you can see it in the rise in prices for wild caught fish, and the popularity in, of course, in farming fish, which has its own environmental implications. And so these things have happened already, and they're increasing. So there's a trend there that's very obvious.
Okay. So coming back, first of all, it's education. We need to start educating people. There is a serious problem about this one. The second one. So we were talking about the solution and what we could do about this, and what would be the perfect scenario to deal with those things. So the first one, it's education.
Yeah, we start off with the education, of course.
Yes.
And then once people are aware of the problem, then they need to decide, what actions they will take. And as I say, they're personal actions. If we can affect everyone's personal actions, that's the greatest change that we can make. And when that's happened, we're moving in the right direction. And those actions are like I say, joining a cleanup or making sure that their vote counts in terms of supporting candidates that are environmentally conscious, and those, all of that, to take passing legislation. Let's just take a plastic bag bans. That's a popular way of looking at controlling plastics. So there are different legislative avenues that they can take.
Do you think, Jim, if, for example, if 100,000 people would send a letter to the government about the problem, and they would like to have some solution about the ocean cleanup and the marina cleanup, do you think it would be one of the ways how we could make an impact or influence the governments to take care about this issue?
Certainly. In democratic societies, the idea is still that the people have the power. And if collectively the people make choices that say, we want different legislation, we want different action from ourselves collectively, then that change will happen. And that's always been the way that it works. Now, granted, not every society has the opportunity to influence government policy, and in some cases, even dictatorial societies have made changes. Let's talk about the Olympics in Beijing in China, where just because it was bad for their image, they banned plastic bags floating around, and they did it in one day. They didn't have any debate about it in the legislature or anything like that. The premier of China said, "I don't want it. It's now illegal." And he was able to get an incredible environmental positive just because they were embarrassed by the plastic pollution problem in their city.
Wow. Okay, so first of all, education, what we could do, we need to start educating people about this problem. Second of all, we need to take care about our personal actions and our personal garbage and waste. And also probably when we see some plastic on the street, we immediately take it. And so, and we kind of put it on the other plastic. So make sure it will not end of the rivers, because if it's going to end in the rivers, it's going to end in the ocean.
Yes, and people need to make conscious choices. And that is, okay, if I am going out for lunch or a dinner somewhere, and the fellow, the waiter or waitress wants to bring me a beverage, and it's up to me to remember that, please ask them, I don't want a plastic straw. I don't need that. I don't need a plastic lid on my coffee cup, perhaps, or some other quick and easy convenience item that's made of plastic and then has so little economic value that I don't concern myself with it. I just discard it without thinking.
Okay.
And that is the mindset that we must change in the long run to tackle this problem.
Okay, so do you think we could influence that human will stop produce plastic?
I think we've already made changes in that direction. Whether or not it's going to go all the way to a complete, stoppage of all use of plastic, I would kind of doubt that. I would certainly doubt that in the short period. That may evolve over a long period of time. But this problem is immediate. We've been working on making a plastic mess for about a little over 60 years now. And it's probably going to take us somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 years to get control over it. Whether or not we're all the way back to, as clean as before we started this, well, that's a subject of great debate, of course. I would be suspicious that we would ever get back to zero. But I think we can reverse the trend enough that the oceans can, breathe more easily again.
The ocean itself is the single largest ecosystem on the planet. Obviously it covers more than 3/4 of the planet, and so it's got a leg up on everything else. It's pretty important.
Okay, so now, for example, what I would like to let's for example see if we could do everything. Let's imagine that, I don't know, we clean up everything, and the humans sat to the table and ask themselves a question. Okay, let's invent the world one more time and let's clean up the mess that we did. Yeah. How's that those changes, how they would look like? So what would actually happen from your perspective? And of course we just imagining those things, so I understand that, but if we can just talk briefly about how do you think, what would need to happen to change the future and to clean up the past?
Wow, Paul, that's a big question.
I know.
Sure. As I say, it's such a big question that that is the whole point of what we are doing. Can I go turn it around and go back at you that way? Sure. Is that there is no grand scheme that controls everything, but each and every effort that we make, and ours is a small effort on the grand scheme of everything. But if we make a concerted effort to deal with single problems at a time, overall we make progress, and I think that's really, at least at the time being, that's all we can ever expect.
Okay, but for example, do you think we should stop producing the plastic in the future at all?
I think that at least in my consciousness, we're going to remain humans, and the profit motive is going to remain one of the strongest motives on the planet. So people are going to do what gives them an advantage, and that is to say going into business or being very good at business or shrewd at business perhaps, and come away with more than what they started with at the end of each working day. So if we recognize that, where we're at, we're going to create waste, and that waste is going to impact us. And so we need to begin to manage all of our waste, be that stuff that's coming out of the tailpipe of our machinery, our automobiles and such, or the packaging that our food comes in. And if we create a consciousness about our waste is a resource and it's a closed loop, and we're not going to Mars anytime soon to start harvesting things up there, it might put a little better sense of perspective in everybody, and that's pretty important.
Okay, a very interesting thing I saw today, I saw the advertisement. Basically, there is one beverage company, small beverage company, and basically, you know how they package in the plastic those 6 packs of cans, this little foil kind of stuff. So
yes.
Basically, this company, they invented this. They don't use the plastic, but they use the material that even the humans can eat. So it's eatable material. So whatever, if the people will throw it out and going to the ocean, if the humans can eat that, turtles can eat, and fish can eat that. So I think that was really interesting. I wanted to tell you about this one. Did you ever heard about those things?
I did see probably the same little article that you saw. And I think in some cases that's a viable technology. There's a young group in Belgium that has created edible forks and spoons,
exactly.
And I'll call it tableware and such, and we very much support their efforts. The 6-pack ring, okay, edible is better than just, you know, non-degradable. So I would say everything that steps us in, you know, forward is exactly that. And if the experience they have creating edible 6-pack rings can lead to other edible packaging that is at least biodegradable, and of course we want to make sure that all that stuff is actually organic, I think that's probably a movement in the right direction.
Okay, so do you think, I know there's the big questions, but do you think that in the future, how the humans manage waste, it might be one of the solutions, the eatable packaging, for example?
I do, and whether it's edible or just plain old really biodegradable, I think most people by now understand that much of what is sold as is biodegradable is plastic is not. So, you know, I haven't really, excuse me, seen this particular material. I've just read, like I said, the same article that you have, but people make lots of bold statements that turn out to not be necessarily completely true later on. Who knows? Like I say, the trend is in the right direction.
Sure. I believe the same. Okay, Jim, so do you think it's possible to clean the ocean in the next few years, or is it as we as a human really can clean up the ocean, or it's from your perspective it's impossible?
I'd say nothing is impossible. Our perspective is that it took us approximately a human lifetime to make this mess, really less than 80 years, and so it should take us 60 to 80 years to probably clean it up.
Okay, so are you aware about any, so for example, we would love to, we always working about some collective goal that our community, the dreamers, idealists, can have a goal and they can go towards with. It's very important to have the collective goal. And we want to develop some collective goal, including the oceans. And so one we came up with that it would be awesome to clean one of the oceans. And if there is technology, I heard about some technology, but I had no idea how that works and things. So on your, for example, scale, let's say you have the community of 1 million people, what they could do, how we could develop this goal, what could be the outcome, what we can push people towards to, if you know what I mean.
Well, again, that's exactly what I think we're trying to do ourselves, is we're looking for answers to part of the problem. And part of the problem is the fact that plastic waste has no value and therefore there is no motivation to recycle it. And we believe that small-scale plastic-to-fuel conversion systems that are located out where the people create the waste would be an economically attractive way of motivating people to recycle their plastic. And that's our little contribution. So I think lots of those little things adding up are what's going to make the difference rather than any one grand scheme.
Sure. So, for example, if we would like to measure that. So, for example, let's say we have 500 pounds of plastic. How much fuel, because we're talking about this really cool device that it's making from the plastic, it's making fuel, right?
Yes, that's exactly what we're researching here with Clean Oceans International and Cabrillo College and the University of California, Santa Cruz.
I think we might be able to help you guys. So for example, if 500 pounds or something, how much this fossil fuel it's generate?
We basically say you get about a 10-to-1 conversion. So for every 10 pounds, you get a gallon, and that's pretty conservative. So for 500 pounds, you'd get 50 gallons.
Okay, so is this for example, this fossil fuel, is it degradable, or is it organic, or I guess it's not. It's basically fossil fuel, but it's.
Yes, it is a petroleum product. This is not a biofuel.
Okay. So if we could do 1 million pounds, how much this fuel we could generate? 1,100,000 gallons?
Yes, 100,000 gallons would be the estimate.
Okay, and the 1 million pounds, it's a lot?
Well, let me put it in this perspective. Here in where I live, we have a lot of agriculture. Mm-hmm. And one of the crops that we have is strawberries, and they're fantastic, beautiful strawberries. And we have one of the largest strawberry distributors in the world is in our neighborhood. So just in the local valley, 15 miles down the road or so, the Pajaro Valley, growing strawberries there, they use 2 million pounds of that black film on the ground to keep the strawberries away from the bugs and stuff. They use 2 million pounds of that a year. So that represents 200,000 gallons of diesel fuel, and that's just for that plastic mulch is what they call it. And there's a lot of other plastic materials down there. That's not necessarily a lot when you consider the amount of fuel that everybody uses, but that's no drop in the bucket either. 200,000 gallons is got some value.
Of course, it's got some value, and so it would be a solution if people would send you this plastic from all over the place, from all over the world to you.
No, that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. There are large places that you can send plastic waste to, and they'll cook it up and make it into something. But then you have the carbon footprint of sending stuff all over the planet, and that's not winning anything. This fuel is less carbon intensive than getting it out of the ground, and so we kind of ruin that calculation if we start shipping the trash back and forth. What we're trying to help happen is to create small-scale plastic-to-fuel conversion systems that then live in those communities and businesses where the plastic waste is created, so that those businesses and communities can then use the fuel and avoid the middleman.
Okay, so Jim, but when we, for example, when we produce, because probably we know that the humanity is in front of, probably we would need to change to electric cars anyway, right?
Yes.
It's kind of the future, because if we're not, again, we put ourselves in trouble. So the fossil fuel, it's probably will be not usable, or it would be, so still humans, I think will burn that, because the consciousness about this one increasing, and also the solar energy, we're going to reach a point in the human history soon when the solar energy will be cheaper than the fossil fuel.
Yes, I agree. I would, however, debate a little bit on what the word soon means. And I've had the good fortune to travel quite a bit, and from my point of view, a mass exodus away from fossil fuel use would be a great idea. I don't see it happening anytime really quickly. And in the meantime, our plastic waste problem is a dramatic impact on ocean health. So perhaps these devices will not be around in 500 years or something, but if we can get through the next 500 years cleaner than what we are doing now, I think it might be a really good idea.
Cool. So just to let you know, and I want to keep this conversation like, as we do back and forth.
Yes.
I think so. It will take some time. So it's a very good point. I agree. What's happening also, what we know about, we also invited this person for an interview. What we know, there is an invention where you can print the solar panel on everything. You can start printing the foil with the solar panel. Did you hear about this?
Well, I try my best to actually stay up and involved in that, and I've seen this before, and I was fortunate enough to be captain on a sailboat that rolled out a sail that had solar panels built into it. I think it was 10 years or so ago. And that was a big event, and it's neat that it's now you can print it on anything remotely. I think that's wild.
Yeah, including clothes, and this company who actually invented this technology, they said this basically it's first time in the human history you will change the price lower than the fossil fuel. So for the big corporations, it will not be a business anymore to get the fossil fuel. But still, I understand the electric cars and distribution of these things. It still will take some time. So what I understand, until we'll get to this point, we can actually clean our marinas, oceans, and all the plastic. And before it's happening, we can use this fossil fuel to sustain ourselves and clean in the same time, right? So that might be a great idea.
That's it. I think, as I say, I'm kind of anticipating that this is going to take 60 to 80 or 100 years to get back under control. And if these municipalities get a life cycle out of their machinery after 100 years, they're still going to be using plastic of some sort. Maybe it's mushrooms or this edible plastic that the guy has created. I'm not sure, but we'll have to create manners of recycling that plastic as well.
Okay. So, Jim, could you tell me, do we have already the technology, for example, but what I understand, what people could do right now, of course, they can manage their own waste, but also what they can do, they can clean the marinas, like go organize the cleanups, right? And take this rubbish. This is what we can do?
Well, right, Paul. It's important to also remember that it's a very diverse world that we live in. And so our communities, are quote-unquote westernized. And in most cases, we have some sort of waste management system that takes care of our rubbish for us in one way, shape, or form. But the great portion of the world doesn't live that way, and so they have zero infrastructure for dealing with their waste. Now, granted, some of the food waste and vegetable waste and stuff, of course, will compost back in. But even these remote communities now have plastic packaging on a great portion of what comes into their lives. And they have no infrastructure whatsoever to deal with that plastic packaging. And now we have the opportunity to provide a small machine that can be tailored down to even very small communities, and so that they have a method of dealing with their plastic that creates something that they use. And that is the vision. And so it's kind of difficult sometimes to put it in perspective outside of our own experiences.
Okay, so I understand we talk about, for example, Thailand. They have a lot of scooters and they don't need that much fossil fuel, and they produce a lot of plastic things, packaging. Right. Okay, so that's start to make perfect sense for me. So I understand on your organization you're working on. I understand you already have the technology, so now you're working on making this technology more available for people?
That's a good way to put it. So we know this stuff works, but we want to be able to show everyone that it works very easily, and I want to make sure that it does exactly what everyone says it will. So we're documenting the amount of power that it actually takes. So it's a third-party, documentation or analysis, I guess. And that includes all the extra equipment that it takes to support this, including the lights and everything else that goes along with it. So we need to know exactly what it would take so that anyone who wants to set something like this up in their community would then know what it's going to actually cost them for a year or 10 years to operate in their community. And so we need this information. We need to do these test runs so that we have accurate information to give out, to anyone else that wants to do it in their community.
That's wonderful. I think that's awesome. Because it could actually motivate people, and especially on those not Western worlds, to actually move and collect this plastic like crazy.
Well, I like to compare it to something that we have here in our community, is that the cans and the bottles that people have, soft drinks and stuff in, have a value to recycle it, and it's 5 or 10 cents for us. So that is a reasonable enough motivation that someone will ensure that bottle is not laying idle in the street. And it works. And so any of these communities that say, oh, we don't need a recycling bill, well, I beg to differ. It really works. It's obvious that it works. And I think if the plastic scrap had a value where so-and-so could collect a pound of it here and there and get some money for it at some recycle center, I think that would disappear from the streets and gutters as well, and therefore into the streams and then the rivers and eventually the ocean. And so slowly but steadily we will choke off that one portion of the supply of plastics that gets free into the ocean, and we'll be able to concentrate on some of the other sources.
I think that's wonderful. I didn't see this in this perspective, and maybe I was connecting this too much for ocean cleanup. But it's, for example, the tons of plastic could disappear from the streets because of this. What you guys doing?
Yeah, and it's not just the streets of the big cities of the Western world. It's the streets that are paved in dirt and plastic. All over the rest of the world.
Wow, that's wonderful. There's
a lot of those.
Yeah, I've been in Thailand, I've been in Asia, and I saw how many of those, and I also saw some videos. So I pretty can imagine what we are talking about here. So I think that's amazing. So Jim, what you need? What kind of help you need?
Right now, we need donations, financial donations, to pay for equipment that we've already ordered. And we have been even using some of it, and a lot of it needs to be paid for. But essentially, we're very close. We've got one large piece of equipment that we're still trying to raise money for, but we're trying to get the first stuff paid off first. And we need a big shredder. And it's coming, we're getting donations here and there, and people are hearing about us, just like you calling here. This is wonderful, and that's what's going on. So you can go to our website, and there's information about how to contact us.
Sure. May I ask you how much money do you need?
Well, right at the moment, we're looking at $60,000 US.
Okay. That's always good to know. And for example, so Jim, are those people, for example, can donate by buying something from you? Like maybe they could order this machine and you could generate a profit, but they could, I don't know, use it in their community or something like this?
That we're certainly open to anybody's ideas for whatever brings in the money that makes this happen. So, any and all fundraising ideas will be considered for sure.
Yeah, I think what's a bit what I see I can speak only for kind of my experience and what I think, and I observe some shift that people are want to help. That's for sure.
I agree.
They want to do something, and many times they are much more willing to help if we can provide them even the little toy as a symbol of their help, or the t-shirt or the something. So I tested on my personal endeavors, and were some gadget that actually people can buy. They're willing to pay much more for this gadget just to support the cause, but many more times they won't have something in exchange. So
well, we do have an online store on our website at cleanoceansinternational.org. And so there is a store online there that you can purchase
some cool
hats
stuff
and shirts and stuff to support us.
Okay. I will be more than happy to organize some support. Okay, so Jim, in case of your goals, let's say, is it something? Can we talk about the goal? Like, for example, if you guys distribute 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 those machines all over the world, can we calculate how much progress, how much results are we going to generate?
We're looking at what kind of an impact can we have.
Yes.
With say 5,000 machines out
yes.
there. And of course we could calculate that. And of course those calculations would be educated guesses. Every situation is going to be unique, but the way we look at it is that every situation is going to contribute to the overall health. And this is going to begin making an impact immediately, and it's going to continue making an impact, and that impact is going to grow exponentially as the first users of the technology have good experiences and share those experiences with other people.
Okay, so how far you are, guys, from the actually having everything tested and knowing, oh, we know this is working amazing, and we can rock right now all over the world?
We're really close. Right at the moment, we've just been given 2 solar-powered electrical generating systems that we're setting up to work with our laboratory, a mobile laboratory. And we're waiting one more piece of equipment on the plastic-to-fuel converter itself. And that is scheduled to arrive here within the next few weeks. At that point, we'll hook it all up and start making off-the-grid plastic diesel fuel right here at our local community college.
Okay. Last 2 questions, which I have written down here. I wanted to ask, do we have any technology, for example, the boats which have nets and they collecting the waste?
Yeah, there's all sorts of technology. So there's a whole version of technology that could be used to locate concentrations of debris in the ocean. There's technology that can move boats through the ocean without using any fossil fuels, such as sailing or solar electric. They have their limitations, of course. There are ways to collect plastic in the ocean or on shorelines that doesn't damage the ecosystem of those shorelines. And there's ways to convert that plastic back into energy to continue doing the job.
Exactly. So do you also have some focus on this collecting the waste with not destroying the life below water?
Yes, and it's actually it's not all that challenging. To get everything, that's enormously challenging. But you start with where you can have the greatest impact. And up on the surface, it's I wouldn't say relatively simple, but it is. You use the same technologies that you use for cleaning up an oil spill. You funnel it into one area, and then you rotate it out of the water on a collection belt, and it gives you time to pick through it if you should, inadvertently manage to get a fish. But that would probably just make a good lunch for somebody. Okay.
So, but I understand it's not going to be your focus. You are not guys focusing on that at all. This is not this right now.
Well, that's sort of an end goal, is to be able to do that. But when the organization started, that was the initial goal, and that was too bold of a goal to start with. So I kind of inherited the organization about 3 years ago or so, and kind of retooled it. It's still got the same eventual goal, is to be able to do that in the ocean and on remote shorelines. But I just tried to build a structure that made it recognizable how to get there. And that is, what we're doing with the training with the students at the college, and now the research in the plastic to fuel conversion. And we're actually shopping. If here's something one of your listeners could do, or whatever, help us buy a boat. That's what we're looking to do, is purchase a boat to do this and take it to the outer islands.
Okay, so it was a challenge because it's cost a lot of money.
It takes time, money, and it's problem solving. So, each day you have a new set of questions you got to answer.
Okay.
That's just how any business works, right?
That's definitely the same, experiencing the same here. So I definitely agree. Okay, so there's nobody who is doing already and with successes of collecting a lot of things?
There are a lot of organizations that are doing wonderful things. There is no one organization that I can point to that is doing so much more than anybody else that it's notable.
Sure. I completely understand. Just for finishing, if we can one more time think about the steps that you already have in case of what we can do. I remember the first one was education, right?
Yes.
The second one was taking care of your own waste. Don't buy plastic and stuff like that.
Okay.
And the third one?
Well, figure out how to recycle their waste in their own community.
Okay.
And that is that. So first and foremost, you got to take care of what we're doing individually. And if people need to buy a plastic bag for some reason, then buy it. But just think about it. Do I need it? Answer those questions. That's all. Do I really need this? We did fine 50, 60 years ago, before we had, plastic wrapped around everything. We did okay. Can we get back to that? Is that something that we want to do? And I'm not answering any of those questions. I'm putting those questions out there so everybody has a chance to be conscious on their own and make their own choices.
Understand.
But they need to be, conscious choices.
Okay, Jim. So it's great to meeting another dreamer. You're doing amazing job. I love it. I see the passion. I see how much you know. So that's my pleasure to speak with you. And I will be more than happy. And I really would love to support you as much as I can.
Thanks, Paul. It's my pleasure entirely. I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.